Three Thick Bricks.
Welcome to Three Thick Bricks, a monthly podcast where we explore the musical world of Jethro Tull album by album. I'm Robin, and I'm joined by my erstwhile co-hosts Adrian and Brent. I'm the one in Blackpool, it is live from Blackpool, wearing the knotted handkerchief, and I've got my braces dangling down. How are you here? How are you guys going?
Oh, living in lockdown.
Living in lockdown, yeah.
Wish we were living in the past.
yeah, remember 2019? Those were the days.
Well, if Robin's living in the present and Brent's living in the past, I guess I'm living in the future.
Well, we certainly hope so.
I come to you from the future.
Now, why are we your erstwhile?
You know what erstwhile means, don't you?
No, I don't actually. It just
It means former.
Former?
Well, it is. We are in the past.
Well, there you go. How do you like my knotted handkerchief? Is it suitably
It's very nice.
Blackpool-y?
I was going to say,
That's beautiful. Gingham is very flattering.
So that is very not Australian beach culture.
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
Sort of bronze bodies and melanomas. That's Australian beach culture. Are braces hanging down's getting all casual, is it?
Yes, that's right. In fact, I'm sure we've got some old family photos of my grandfather at somewhere like Blackpool with his, with a shirt and trousers on and braces, sort of sitting in a deck chair,
And you unclick them and you flick them over your back.
He took his jacket off.
Let it all
Took his
hang
jacket
out.
off. That's right.
He was getting. It's almost like nudist bathing. So we're here today to discuss the
Mega compilation.
Mega compilation. Now, I haven't actually discussed this with Adrian, but I think this is a special album for all of us. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was released in 1972, and 1972 did have a little bit of history, so I thought I might just set it in its context. So, Richard Nixon went to China.
Yeah.
A major diplomatic coup for him, which he fucked up by then ordering spies to break into the Democratic National Congress, which I think will come back to haunt him in a couple of years' time, maybe around the time of War Child, if I'm right. Britain took over direct control of Northern Ireland. Great move.
Yeah.
And
Totally uncontroversial, yes.
Yes. And just in other cultural news, I think The Godfather was the greatest selling movie of the year and might have won a few Academy Awards.
You come to my podcast. Have you ever once? An absolute landmark in cinema history.
Yes.
So, and I've watched it.
If Helen was the face that launched 1,000 ships, this was the movie that launched 1,000 other movies.
The other movie, probably very different to The Godfather, but very countercultural, that was released that year was Clockwork Orange.
I was going to say.
That leapt out at me when we're speaking of counterculture.
I remember going to a certain art house cinema with you quite a lot, and it was one of the movies they showed there.
Oh, was it? Oh, the Valhalla.
Valhalla, the good old Valhalla.
Is it still going?
No.
It's long gone.
Did you cosplay? Did you cosplay Clockwork Orange? I hope you did.
No, yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that Ian Anderson was not a teddy boy. I'm going to guess.
Actually, they wore codpieces, didn't they, in Clockwork Orange? That was part of the uniform.
Maybe he was.
Yeah.
Because he didn't quite. He wore that proto codpiece at the Isle of Wight. I don't know what that was. Sort of
I think it was someone's scalp.
Yeah, was it? hippie scalp. Mm-hmm. So, Living in the Past, released in 1972, and a compilation album, but so much more.
Oh yes, so much more,
and so much less.
I'm very sad because my copy I bought secondhand in the 80s. My LP copy got water damaged, so it very much looks like it's been dug up out of the ground. But this is like in a plastic sleeve, in a paper sleeve, in a gatefold. Like, it just feels like,
paper or your water damaged ones permanently stuck together though?
Yeah, I had to
Can you actually get it out?
I can get I think the LPs are fine. Look, I think the LPs are fine. It's just that obviously the paper and
they're in
cardboard
plastic.
is,
It's seen better days.
damaged.
If anyone asks, you can say it's because of Tears of Joy.
But it is a compilation album, but it's like you say, it's so much more than that. So
because really, it wasn't really a best of album. It would have been a bit of overly ambitious to produce a best of album by this time. But I guess the thing is that Tull were releasing singles in the UK while they were releasing these albums, and these singles are astounding.
Yeah, they're amazing, aren't they?
I just think it's astounding that he were writing this sort of music. I mean, when people studio produce albums, they try to put their best work onto it, don't they? Because it's going to be their legacy. It's their
apparently not.
Their showpieces and legacy. It's brazen. So we don't need to put this on an album. We'll just pen this off and release it as a single. And each of these singles could be the centerpiece of an album. I mean,
I was looking through the the tracks and which album they came from, and thinking, I'd have preferred if that was on the album, actually. This one. Oh, that's better than the things on the album. Next one. Oh, that's also one of my favourites on the album. It would have been if it'd been on there. So, it's just amazing.
I think it reflects the time, though, that there was, I think we've talked about this before, there was the singles and there was albums, you know what I mean? There was this sort of... And it's quite strange to hear the sort of the discourse around this. You know, Ian Anderson would say, well, Terry Ellis told us we needed to get a single out there to stay on the boil. So we threw together Living in the Past as a single. And so it was almost like, we did this to keep the public, to kind of give them something to keep them excited and interested. And that's the thing that hit me about listening to this album is how good these songs are.
I think I'd mentioned, and these were being written on tour, and penned off very quickly. I think that only happens when you are young and just full of inventiveness and creativity. And it could not have done that in another decade after this, but it's just a reflection of, and I think that's why this period of music, and this album in particular, is really like a document of my favourite period of Tull. From the beginning to now. It will never be the same for me after this. I'm going to say I know I've rated albums very highly. It does start to slip from here because I love this period of Tull. And this is like basically like a capstone, a document on this period.
And it is... I get the feeling that the fact that they were writing songs to be singles gave a kind of discipline around the songs. There's kind of a driving discipline chorus verse to a lot of them that really, really, you know what I mean? That maybe that same...
They have to stand on their own. They can't, they can't exist in a...
Yeah, well, there's no way you can release like a 42-second song called Mercy or something, for example. Right. Here's our single. It's like, no.
Living in the Past represents what I would call the classical era of Jethro Tull, because the next era is what I would call the Baroque era, where things get... just
if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it.
Right. More of everything just doesn't make things better, and that's what we get.
It's interesting. This was because we started our journey into Tull with later albums from the late 70s.
Say Odyssey, surely.
Odyssey. But this was, I think, this was the entree into.
This was the first album I ever listened to. Yeah,
I remember, and I sat there and thought, "Fuck, this is great. This is not what we've been. Not that I didn't like, that we were listening to Heavy Horses, and but I just thought this is different, and this is great. And I remember particularly Sweet Dream. Just blew me away, and I thought, I've got to listen to more of this era of Tull, and that's what led me into it.
And I wondered, is it because they were, in theory, made to be more approachable as singles. Because I mean, basically, they're all these singles, and also the singles on here too. They're not big. Jethro Tull have never been big on their singles, but all the top 6 singles they ever had, charting wise, 5 of them are on this album.
Yeah.
So
it isn't. So it's interesting. Not all the singles are on there.
No.
They didn't. Aeroplane and Sunshine.
Well, Jethro Tull, that was a different band.
Exactly. And not all the B-sides made it onto this either.
No.
So, but there are some B-sides on it. And it's very interesting. There is one song from each of the 4 albums preceding this on it. And they actually changed that song between the UK and US releases. But it seems like a conscious decision just to represent each album.
Yep.
But there's one song from each album on this.
And
some live stuff as well. I think it's really was designed as a presentation of really a document of their first 4 years and
well, it's almost like a summary CV, isn't it?
What a hell of a CV it is!
It's incredible. I mean, the thing is, if someone turned up at your doorstep and said, "Look, I've never heard Jethro Tull. Is there an album that you can lend me that would sort of you would be more than happy. I would be more than happy to living in the past is a perfect encapsulation of that.
You could say to them, "Lend me your ears while I call you a fool,
yes.
and I'll play you some songs."
Yeah, it's it is I mean, as Jethro Tull goes, there are great albums, but for me, I mean, I can say it doesn't get better than this. And yes, you can say, well, it's a compilation, of course, but you don't. But together, I think the sum is greater than the parts in a sense. I mean, it really is.
Exactly.
Even the album itself, the original album, is so lovingly crafted. Just the cover, it looks like what it looks like. It looks like a kind of a classical album that your mum and dad would have had on the sort of dusty shelves.
With like the Mozart.
But, you know what I mean?
Front,
Mozart or something like that. They did a beautiful job with the concept of it. It just everything about it is fantastic.
So I think this speaks to something that I think cohesion in an album. This should not be a coherent album, should it? It shouldn't by all rights.
No.
But there is thought that's gone into putting what goes on this and has been put on it. And I don't think coherence in an album is just about theme. And there are some strong thematic elements through some of the albums that we've already discussed.
Yeah.
But coherence can also be about progression and sort of a unifying principle in musicianship and quality.
Yeah.
And that's what this album is about. You said it's an odyssey, Adrian.
Yeah, it is. It
through
very
the
much
first
is.
4 years of Jethro Tull, and it's just a real capstone on the top of an excellent period of their music. My favourite period of their music.
Yeah, I mean, it does draw a line in the sand because it's like things will not be the same moving forward.
Well, it's interesting. I think we'll discuss it when we get to the last side because I think there's a turning point. There's like a fork in the road there, which is very interesting that I never really appreciated when we start talk about the last side of this album, because I don't think they had to go in the.
No, they didn't, and I mean, I don't want to get into thick as a brick there, but it seems like that was, where they went was almost a reaction to things rather than their own direction, which is unfortunate.
I think there's an interesting pointer at the end of this album as to what might have been.
Yes,
and it's sort of wistful thinking about what might have been.
What could Brent be talking about? Tune in the next episode to find out.
I think there's also a germ of some ideas that will pop up in the later 70s after the Baroque period, if you like, the Achtung Baby of Jethro Tull being songs from the wood, and I think there's some there's some hints of that in this album, but we won't hear from that kind of thing for a long time.
For a while, until he's got a few other things out of his system.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that always gets me is that I'm talking about how it's deliberately made to look kind of like an old album, It's called Living in the Past. The main song on it's Living in the Past. And again, the band name, Jethro Tull, coming at it from in the 80s as a young kid, it really was who are these musty old bunch of, everything sort of reinforced this idea in my head that they were just kind of has-been, past-it types. But again, looking at how the singles from this album in particular did, it's clear that there was like up-and-coming, fresh, new, young, exciting talent. And, they never quite made it number one, but they were consistently in the top 10 in the period, these few years. So
yeah,
reaching number one is not usually something to be aspired to. It might reflect in sales, but this was not a band that's focus was necessary. I think they tried for success, but the music was more important than the. And I think to get a number one hit, I think you need to sacrifice something, and I don't think Ian Anderson in particular was prepared to do that.
It would have been tough to get number one. I mean, everyone was pumping out pop singles, and things were left, right.
Yeah, well, I saw the list of the top 10 songs when Living in the Past hit its peak at number 3. And oh my God, it's like songs that are still played on the radio, like at number 10, all through today. They were just such recognisable songs. It was like sort of being in the Olympics of like the singles chart for that particular period. And any one of those 10 songs, I wouldn't have argued with you if they'd sort of gotten to number one. They're all pretty heavy hitter songs.
Yeah.
So I've suffered. I've got a bit of a surprise looking through my vinyl again, because I've suffered from that.
A dead rat?
No, well, it wasn't stuck together, but I suffered from the iTunes thing where deletion of tracks. So I got a big surprise because obviously some of these tracks are duplicated elsewhere, and I thought, oh Christ, that was on Living in the Past. So it's been good to put the vinyl back on with its hisses and pops and its full track list. And I should point out here that looking at the track listing, I was surprised. I thought we had the UK versions, but we do have the US releases.
Right.
Just looking at the track listings. And perhaps the UK version was only released in the UK, and that we in Australia got the US version.
Well, I thought Robin's original version was the only one I've seen that was the original UK. Every other one has been like my current one, which says 1972, but it's not.
But they were both released in 1972.
It doesn't have the extra fold-outs and things.
Well, apparently there was a photo. Oh, did you have a photo booklet, Robin?
No, just a fold-out.
There was a photo booklet in the UK release,
and so I think whoever had it had kept that or had lost.
I've just got a fold out with lots of pictures of Ian Anderson in his
prime.
Yeah,
underwear.
Underwear. Well, it would be underwear for anyone else. Underwear and his checkered coat.
Oh, yes,
plaid coat. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's interesting.
Eyes, so.
It's interesting that the first 3 albums have the whole band on it, and then we get Aqualung and we get this, and only Anderson features
in the pictures.
Well, I think that's just because over the years between This Was and the end, he's the only constant, isn't he? So.
Yeah, I guess everybody features on this. So everybody in the history of Tull
all over the
features
place,
on this.
Though.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But it's interesting how after Benefit, either there's no band members on the front or there's Anderson. There's no more.
Yep.
It's no more the whole band kind of idea anymore.
They do a bit later I mean, as you well know, on the front of A, they're all there.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's kind of ironic since it was supposed to be a solo album.
Yes, I know.
That's pretty funny, isn't it? Yes, no, this is not a solo album. This was never meant to be a solo album. We're all going to dress up in overalls and we're all going to be
in our white onesies and...
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So are we ready to spread the love.
Yeah.
Should we start? Because so apologies if this isn't very critical to our. No, look, some of the tracks might be, but I think we've already forecast that
big love for this one.
Big love for this album.
I had to really hit this thesaurus hard because, like, is track 1 shit, track 2 crap, track 3 excrement, bubbling excrement.
Oh,
okay.
More embarrassing details to come. Okay. All right. So side 1.
Living in the past.
This is
starts off with Song for Jeffrey on mine.
Yes, Song for Jeffrey, yes.
Correct. Yes, and that's why it wasn't on. This was in my track listing because it had been stolen by Living in the Past,
taken away, spirited away by the iTunes fairies.
On this is a remix. Can you notice the difference?
Oh, it's much clearer and cleaner, isn't it?
Cleaner, right? Yeah. So it has been remixed.
Yeah.
I've just got to say, if it was a good album ender, it's an even better album.
It's great, and it's actually the first song of theirs I ever heard on this album. So Nathan let me Living in the Past, and I had one of those portable cassette decks, the ones that were mono, with the great big buttons, and you slid. And I remember listening to this, and it was so weird because it sounded like someone was making a telephone call from the 1920s with, and playing the music down the line.
Mary had a little
It sounded, I'm thinking, what the hell is this? This is so strange. And what is this song about, Neil? Why do they sound like, it really stuck with me. I didn't know what to make of it because
grabbed your attention.
It did. Yeah. So this sort of tinny mono with this weird kind of affected bluesy sound.
Was it mono on this? Well, it was mono in your cassette recorder. A lot of these singles were recorded mono and then stereo enhanced for this album.
Yeah. So
not sure if Song for Jeffrey was one of them, but I think it works much better as an album opener than an album ender.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a great start. I'm pleased they didn't start with Aeroplane. Because that would have just been wrong. And,
if they're going to pick something from this, it would have been this or Beggar's Farm, surely.
Well, yeah, and I don't think Beggar's Farm would have been a great opener.
Especially with Love Story as the next song.
And are you suggesting they shouldn't have chosen Someday the Sun Won't Shine for Me as an opener?
No, please.
I am suggesting that, yes.
I mean, if you... And the thing is, it feels like they are living... So this idea that Jethro Tull were living in the past... And I knew nothing about Jethro Tull. I mean, this is pre-internet days. I just assumed they were some kind of retro, weird, really throwback to the 1920s kind of band because it sounds like they were living in the past.
Well, it's kind of ironic that we were living in the past when we were listening to this because we were really it's true.
It's true.
So, we were living in an era of new wave and punk and post-punk and hair metal and synth pop.
What a load of rubbish.
And there was this, which I think is probably why it appealed.
Yep.
So it's interesting. There's one song later on this album where I think the remix is better than the original. So let's we'll get to that.
Okay.
I think you might know which one I mean, but anyway, we'll get to that. So we have analysed Jeffrey in detail.
Yes. Go back to that podcast; it's an awesome podcast. Go and listen to that one.
Yes.
Don't listen to this one. It sounds cheap. So moving on to Love Story, track 2. Can I gush about this or someone else?
Yes. Go, gush away, please.
Gush away.
This is fantastic. I love this song to absolute death. It's a bit like you said with Beggar's Farm, Robin. You learn more about the person singing the song than you do about what it's about. But this is a fact that seems strangely lost on the internet, where you sort of read people what they think the song means. It's all about.
Oh, I don't read opinions on the internet.
It's about God, isn't it?
And this one not so much, but this is kind of typical of the sort of thing you hear for Love Story is that It's about a guy who's got a beautiful girlfriend, but she won't do what he wants her to do. And I just look at the thing. First of all, where does it say anything about the woman at all, let alone that she's beautiful?
Are you suggesting there's an irony fail?
Yes, possibly. So, the thing I love about it is you got this guy whinging about this woman. Like, this guy could be anything from his husband to a serial killer, basically. That's the breadth that this guy could. He could just be a stalker.
Yes.
He don't actually know anything. All he does, all we know is his opinion of what she should be doing, what she should be up to. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty stupid things he wants her to do. Like, you shouldn't be doing whatever you want to do. You should be calling for winter because that's so useful.
I've never had a house with a roof that needs painting. What is that?
That's right. She should be painting the fucking roof. I mean,
that is ironic. I mean, to take that literally.
Completely ironic. And I think...
This is the genius of the song is that... Yeah. Yeah, it's like The Woman You've Done Me Wrong, but so much better done than anything
it's actually, on this was. It's actually a direct riff on that, isn't it? It might even be a reaction to This Was, because it's a direct parodied riff on that. The Woman You've Done Me Wrong concepts, just a bit like Beggar's Farm was.
Yeah, so, exactly. I'm actually really disappointed because I thought it was an ironic response to Love Story, the single, that really schmaltzy single. How can I begin to tell the story? But unfortunately, Love Story was released in the sort of 1973. But it feels like it's a reaction to those schmaltzy.
I think he was ready for the schmaltz, so he knew that was coming. He's preaching.
I mean, it's funny. I think this is hilarious. She should be painting the roof. Should be doing this.
What does her head in the ground, and she should be calling for winter mean?
Well, that's the slightly disturbing.
I thought it was about a duck or an animal, a horse. Actually, I wasn't sure that
it could mean she's an ostrich. It could mean that she's been murdered and he's buried her there. It could be just that. It could just be that she's a bit of a horticulturalist and she's like always planting things, looking forward to winter and what comes after the growing season. Who knows? It doesn't matter. This guy's just an idiot frothing at the mouth because he's not getting his way. It's hilarious. It's genius. I absolutely love it.
It's clearly ironic. So I can't see how you could.
It is.
I find this musically fascinating because this was the first single released after This Was.
Yep.
November '68, I think, and Mick Abrams is credited.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh yeah, electric guitar. Yeah.
So this is a This Was era musicianship, if you like, with stand-up sensibilities, with the irony.
Absolutely.
I find this extremely interesting. The guitar riff is great, and Mick Abrams. There's mandolin in it.
Yeah, mandolin as well.
That bit with the the percussion, that sounds like something from stand-up.
Are there bongos in it? So the drum sounds.
It just says drums are percussion.
I don't know, but the lyrical adventurism in it, and but with Mick Abrams' great musicianship, I find this really interesting. I think this was probably just as he was leaving, but clearly he could contribute musically to where the band was going, and it really makes nothing against Martin Barr, of course, but this is a real what if moment because this is fantastic musically, great guitar riff. Mick Abrams clearly participated in it and did a great job, and it really makes it feels like a stand-up song.
It does.
There's kind of a what if thing there. What if
and they're not fighting with each other. There's in some of the stand-up, and I love that bit, like where there's that use of silence and just flute, where it's just that do 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 do, and then it starts again. There's this sort of little interlude before it then hits again. It's really nice put together.
And it fits him beautifully with the lyrics. He's basically like, he comes along, he flips his lid because she's doing what she's not painting the bloody roof or whatever, and then he kind of goes off and sort of goes down to the pub with his mates, has a few beers or whatever, and it's like right back in the morning again, kind of all aggro once more. It's genius.
But I just there's look. The chemistry was probably never going to work. And maybe Mick Abrams couldn't subsume his musical direction and style and desires to what Jethro Tull were going to evolve into, but this is a real what if moment because it's a great song and his contribution to it is great, and it basically feels like something that could have been on stand up.
It's got that psychedelic wah wah in it that's really nice. Wah wah wah. I know what I would find. Yeah, it's great.
So is the guy in it, is that Mick Abrams, and Jethro Tull is the woman?
The woman. Oh. Have you been drinking sake too?
Yes. This is like their first single. I don't know, like this list of singles of theirs I got. I don't know if it's all the singles they've released, but according to this list, it's the first one that was released.
I thought Song for Jeffrey
it got to number 29, which is pretty good for a debut single.
In the UK. I thought Song for Jeffrey was the first single.
Well,
this is the first non-album single, right?
That's not on my list, so I don't know what this list is about, but I have a list.
It would
officialcharts.com. Oh, maybe it's the US list.
Song for Jeffrey was definitely a single because Song for John G was on the B-side.
Yeah.
So this is maybe the first of their amazing catalogue of non-album singles.
Yep.
And I can imagine all these people going, "Oh, love story. That sounds lovely. Let's buy that." And then
that's ironic in itself, isn't it? It's the irony's in the title. I mean, I can't see how you could.
Oh, it's not nice. It said love story, and it's nothing like that at all.
Why won't that woman do what this man asks?
But it is a complete two fingers up to some of the stuff on this was, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's like,
it is. It's great.
Great song.
And the other thing about this song is, and there's a number of songs like this on the album, is it tells a story in a sort of episodic way. So we see that with Singing All Day. This sort of something happens and then the next day something else happens and then next, you know what I mean? It's got that kind of. There's a couple of songs like that where there's this sort of
teacher witch's promise.
Yeah, exactly. This sort of and so that's one of the themes that struck me about this album is that kind of this happened and then the next day I went and did this or went back to the house. That kind of backing and forthing.
It's starting into storytelling,
yes,
isn't it?
Yeah,
and he does. I mean that, and right throughout Jethro Tull's career, that is something, and this is probably a first step into that. I mean, it sees its full expression on some of the concept albums, but but this is probably a first step into that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realise. I just thought this is stand-up era. It felt like it could fit very comfortably on the stand-up album.
Mick Abrams is the guitar.
Yeah, and I think, why wasn't it on the stand-up album? It feels like it should be. It's interesting. It would have not been out of place on that album at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I really wish it had been on This Was. But I guess, the as you say, if there's a finger up to the...
Recorded afterwards? It's probably the last thing.
November.
Well, because I think the B-side is interesting.
Yes.
So should we go on to it? We're in July here, so it's Christmas in July in Australia. And we're going to go on to Christmas song. So I do remember this was maybe not a favourite of yours, Robin, but you certainly appreciated it.
Oh yeah, so I mean, I love this. I'm not, as you know from the last podcast, I'm not a big fan of Anderson's musing about religion, but this is different. I really, really like this because I think he does this thing where a little bit like we were talking before about on Aqualung with Aqualung, how he kind of draws you in and then subverts things, and he does this here. So he starts this song like a Christmas Carol, once in Royal David City, lonely cattle shed. You're thinking, oh yeah, and then he turns it around on and then talks about the excess and the hedonism that people express at Christmas, and that kind of miss the point of what Christmas is supposed to be about. And then he subverts it again at the end. So it's I love it because he subverts it once and then he subverts it again at the very end. It's great. I really, 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 I always think about this song at Christmas time.
Yeah. Like I do remember the Santa passes your bottle.
Yeah. Psst, psst. Santa's passes that bottle, will you? Yeah. Which he undercuts his own seriousness there, which is a really nice thing that he does, because it sounds very serious and he's really finger wagging in a sense, you know.
Oh, he is.
But then he undercuts
reasons for smiling are wrong.
Yeah.
When your own mother's hungry.
Yeah, what do you think, Brent? Are you in agreement with that?
Look, it's not my. There are a number of there are such standout tracks on this album that even quite good songs sort of disappear into the background, and this one does a bit for me because it's between two stellar songs, right? It feels like it could have been on Stand Up. It's got a wit and an irony to it. It's got experimental mandolin, experimental instrumentation. It's very much in the wheelhouse of Jeffrey Goes to Leicester Square and Fat Man. So this was really a prelude to Stand Up. Not my favourite parts of Stand Up, obviously, because they're probably my two least favourite tracks on the album. But this is very much in line with that.
Yeah, I quite liked it back in the day when I listened to it, but these days it's just I find it a bit ham-fisted. It's not subtle at all. It's a bit high and mighty and preachy, and it's not really offset enough by the cheeky ending. I mean, it's like at the end saying, "Oh, no offence, but you know everything I just gave you the big F you for. I didn't really mean it, honest." So, yeah, it's okay, but it's my least favourite song on the album.
Maybe that at the end, though, actually
it helps redeem it a bit.
It helps, but I think that helps sort of ameliorate the sanctimonious aspect.
I think so. I think it does.
Clearly,
I think it does
a bit.
Clearly, Mick Abrams had nothing to do with this, and it was recorded around the same time as Love Story. It was the B-side to it. So we're right on the point of his departure. But
it's recorded in the same month.
Nice use of violins in it to give it that kind of Christmas carol-y kind of feel.
Yeah, deep Palmer strings. Yep.
So no, I'd listen to it along with Fairy Tale of New York as two of my favourite Christmas songs. So
give me Jack Frost and the Hooded Crow any day.
Is that a Christmas song?
Well, it's the right time of year, pretty much.
All right. Okay. All right. So, it's time for it.
Oh.
Are we going to go living in the past?
Living in the past. This is a song we loathed for 20 long years, but we've tidied it up a bit. This is from the re-recording, the 20th anniversary box. It's like the live version. Yeah. And he says, "This was a song we loathed for 20 long years, but we've tidied it up a bit to make it a bit more interesting to play. This is living in the past." That's pretty much word for word what he says.
I have one word, iconic.
This is one of... Is this... Probably in some places this would have to be Jethro Tull's most famous song.
Yeah, absolutely.
If not the most famous. Yeah. So it was an FM. It's still an FM radio standard in the US, isn't it?
Yeah,
even to this day.
They still play it every day. I mean, Anderson must be cutting. I shouldn't say, but he's probably cutting checks, royalties from it even today.
I know.
Yeah, the thing that gets me is that he says that Terry Ellis said to him, as we said before. We need a single to keep people interested. Can you? And we need it in the next few hours. And Ian said, "Yeah, sure. I'll just go write a song in a few hours, shall I?" And so he did, and this is what he came up with. But he said, he was kind of being told it had to be a single, had to be commercial success. So he went, "Well, I'm going to write a commercial success in my way. Well, how uncommercial can I make a commercial song? Well, let's make it 5/4 for a start," which pretty much no other song ever, apart from Take 5, the very famous is it Dave Brubaker Take 5 song? So that was just the beginning of it, and I don't think he realised that it could just be such a phenomenal hit. He kind of just knocked it together, and I get the feeling he wrote it, I say for his own taste, a bit too simply, and it wasn't much fun to play. But listening to it, I mean, that just helps.
Maybe not for him. So, as you guys know, I've learned to play it recently, and it is a blast to play. I love playing it. It's got this infectious rhythm, which has got something to do with 5/4 time, I'm sure, which is probably part of its enduring appeal. It's swinging. Yeah. It's just there's just something you just can't avoid singing and tapping your toe along. Exactly.
I'm wondering why that you tapped it 4 times and then it's not back to the start of the bar.
What happened to the 5th one? Yes. So
there was a funny story Ian Anderson related about he was at some show or other and they were playing Living in the Past, or they'd just been playing it, and Cliff Richard was there, and he was like trying to dance along with it and looking very confused because, he's trying to dance in 4/4 basically, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's the flute playing the lead guitar is really fantastic in it, which gives it such great. And there's a little bit. Is there a bit of violin in it just before he starts saying "happy"? And there's a bit of a.
I'm not sure.
A violin. It's just now and again.
Well, there are strings according to the album sleeve here.
I'm not sure.
And
it was. Yeah.
I love that interlude between the chorus. Again, the interludes between the chorus and the verse. It's sort of before it picks up again. There's this sort of just quiet a bit, and then it starts up again. A number of the singles do that really well.
There's another genius part is that it stops. So
no fade out.
Well, no, not at the end. Particularly in the intro, it just feels. I mean, it's got this really infectious rhythm, and then bang, it stops for a few bars. What? And then it starts again, and it's really effective. That's
exactly that.
Because you don't expect this to stop, and it just does. There's so much about this song that there's plenty of reasons that it was so popular and is such an enduring classic. I think it was the vehicle. I mean, the album's named after it, but it was clearly the vehicle that brought the whole album to public attention. And what a leading track to announce the album. I think it had been released in the UK much earlier because it was one of those quick, we've got to release something to keep interest on in the UK. But I think this album was its first exposure to the outside of the UK, say for Australia and the US. So, and it was quite. It did very well, didn't it? It was their first
highest ever ranking single, the number 3.
In the UK, was that right? And
I think, well, I don't know exactly, but that's
number 3 in the UK, number 11 in the US.
And it's singularly, it's not like anything else that would have been played at the time. You know what I mean? It's singularly unique in that sense. The other thing that's unique about it is, I mean, I've seen the footage, the black and white footage of Anderson singing it. That there's a sort of a normality about the way Anderson presents it in that, but also his voice on this. One of the things that I know people like it, but I don't respond to Anderson's theatricality particularly well. I saw a video during the A tour of singing Aqualung, live. And I find the way Anderson sort of strikes these poses and then sings to the microphone, I find it very distracting.
The full body gurning.
Yeah, I find he constantly mugging for the mugging and kind of striking these funny poses. And I know that's just his and some people really like that. The thing I really like about the black and white footage of Living in the Past is he doesn't do any of that. He's just delivering it. He could be part of Pearl Jam for all you know, the way he's delivering it.
Oh, no, please, no.
Which I know Anderson's a great admirer of them. And also...
Oh, no, the other way around. It's the other way around.
The voice doesn't feel too contrived either. It feels like he's singing it fairly directly.
Well, I think after Aqualung especially, I mean, he sort of gets more of a stylized singing style, and all the songs on this is more of a pure singing, like in his purest form, and I think probably is his best singing is around here. But afterwards it becomes more of a sort of declaiming, acting style of singing, I think, to get point across for particular songs.
Yeah.
So thematically it's interesting too. Particularly for a very popular album because it's a finger it's a finger against one of his favourite hobby horses, which is the hippie movement, and kind of an indictment of the misguided rebellion and idealism of the hippie movement.
Exactly. And because it's so popular, makes me wonder whether people did want to live in the past more than they perhaps let on.
Yes, yeah.
And it's interesting, this and Christmas Song are together because they're both kind of pointing the finger at different groups. You know, one's at the sort of rich, comfortable middle class, if you like, and this is at the sort of the hippie end of things. So he's kind of critiquing both on these two songs.
There's a real real stance here, because it's right in the chorus every time. We won't give in. So we're not, no matter what the pressure is, we're not giving into this this empty idealism and sort of transient revolutionary ideal. We're going to stay.
Yes, now there's revolution, but they don't know what they're fighting.
We're going to stay grounded and live in the past where we were grounded, and we're going to get through this movement, which did disappear.
Yeah, the other thing with the less boring version they play, I don't think it's as good as this original version. And yes, it might be more fun for them to play, but I think Ian Anderson has a tendency to over-elaborate musically sometimes, especially if he's gets a bit bored with something. Again, Bore, I think I mentioned before, he has that orchestral version, and his flute playing in that, there's all sorts of extra little trills and frills and things he puts into it, and I don't, while for him that's probably makes it more interesting and more challenging and all those things, as a listener, simplicity is sometimes king. The greatest few notes of ever written is da 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 da. It's so simple. It doesn't have to be over elaborate and over complicated to be fantastic music. And I think this, is right in the sweet spot of for a listener. This is great.
Great single, great flagship for this album.
Okay, moving on to the driving song.
So this was the B-side to the original Living in the Past, released in '69 in the UK, right? It's obviously got a double meaning.
Really?
Does it? What's the other meaning?
Well, a driving song is something.
Oh, for golf, of course.
Yes, a triple meaning. triple bogey. I don't even know what that means. I hate golf.
It's bad.
Triple bogey's bad? Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is not that bad. So,
well, for you it'd be good.
For me it'd be good, okay. Obviously it's got its golf meaning, but, driving songs are sort of the background music you listen to when you're driving, but it's obviously
I never really thought about that at all. The only meaning I ever took was the I'm being driven to work too hard, which as I think we've discussed before is kind of, it's right in that we're being overworked sort of time of their lives, so it's kind of fair enough. Is there a reaction to that, do you think?
It's very interesting though, because this predates Benefit by quite a bit.
Yeah.
So clearly and I originally didn't connect it, before I really thought about Benefit. I just thought this was a general statement of non-specific description of somebody who's overworked. But clearly, looking at Benefit, this is probably much more autobiographical. However, it predates Benefit by quite a way. So,
well, it's right at the same time as Stand Up.
I mean, it's quite bluesy as well, which makes it feel.
That's exactly. It's odd. It's got a blues structure with a Benefit motif.
Yeah.
A note I've written here is like a good version of Tull Blues. There you go.
So, I mean, it would have. On this it would have been like quite a standout. So
yeah, I'd have loved it.
Yeah.
I'd have been crying out.
It feels like just like
a
kind of a. Plight of the working class man, kind of, working too hard and
I don't know.
that kind of thing.
That's what I thought. But I think it's actually, if you consider what's coming up in Benefit, I think it's autobiographical. And it's it's a much more direct, less lyrical, probably less satisfying take on that theme. And he'll develop and mature that a lot more later. It's not terrible. It's quite a satisfying bluesy.
It's all right. It's probably my least favourite of the...
It's definitely not up there. I mean, if it's on This Was... If it's on This Was, it'd be one of my favourite songs on This Was, but it's one of my least. It shows a pulley in this company, I think.
Exactly,
but it's a different style of song. It's the same, that more bluesy style again.
But it's almost a throwaway song.
Yeah,
and it's a true B-side.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
You're right. You're right. It's like I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's not like it's terrible or anything, but it feels like you say, it kind of has the themes you expect from Benefit, but it has the bluesy style that you expect from This Was. Yeah. So it's a bit of a hybrid from that perspective.
One of the great things about this album is we get to hear a lot of Glenn Cornick again, and the paired bass and guitar are good. Yeah.
Yes, and we forgot to mention his bass at the beginning of Living in the Past. My goodness, dum 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 dum.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. It's very Glenn Cornick, wasn't it? Yeah.
But that's for a while, for much of this album, because it leads right up into Aqualung, where we're dealing with Glenn Cornick, and there's some great pieces for him coming up. So it's really a very cool thing that we get to revisit some of his bass playing, because he was the best bass player for Tull ever in the history of Tull.
It's just a pity you never got a chance to propose, really.
No, well, I did, but he refused. He declined. I don't think we've got too much more to say about Driving Song.
So we're driving on to Bore.
This had fallen off my list, so I got
this
quite
had fallen off my list as well.
I got quite a surprise that it was on the album, but there it is.
Yeah, because it's not on mine.
And it's stand-up's representative on this album, and a good one, a fine one to represent.
Yeah.
But I think we've said everything we need to say about Bore already, haven't we?
But if you're one of those hippies making love in the bushes, it kind of makes sense to finish on Bure, because the peak would come around Driving Song, and the cigarettes would be out for Bure.
Be the cigarettes and the
the post-coital cigarette would be for Bure.
Yes.
So actually, if you're in the bachelor pad, you put on this it would start off okay, and then as you're fixing the drinks, you would get through Love Story and Christmas Song. Then things are getting better at Living in the Past. Then Driving Song, things are going really well, and then it's Bure's all over.
So what does that mean for sides 2, 3 and 4?
There for another day.
Another day, exactly.
It's okay.
So side 2, it's another day. Side 2.
Now this side 2, if I was stuck on a desert island with only one of the two discs from the album, and the other side was scratched, I would want to have side 2. This is the high watermark of the album. I love. I could just listen to this side. So let's. Oh God. Okay.
It's the peak of the peak, so to speak. It is. Yes,
it's like the peak of the meringue.
Yes, exactly. Okay. The very top bit that just curls over. It curls over just.
And speaking of meringues, I mean, the first song is "Sweet Dreams," so it works. Yes. It works so well.
Now, this is what I call, speaking about the Baroque pop. This is that use of string arrangements and horns and things. And there's almost a bit of a wall of sound about this as well. But, it's not quite as Baroque pop as one that's coming up, but it has those elements to it really nicely.
But also, and you say it's a wall of sound, and it does have some really good, strong riffs and things in it, but it also has quite the quieter moments too, like with just the acoustic guitar going. So
the bit with just the acoustic is the kicker. It's so good. I love that. I love that. And then there's little Clive Bunker drum fills. They're very short, but just that's just that bridge so between the verse and the chorus is just excellent. Yeah. And the acoustic is dialed up in the mix, so it's actually not competing with, but it's actually holds an equal footing with the electric guitar. It's just
according to what's written here, it's actually a 12-string guitar. So.
Doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because it's actually
those horns and strings and things. They give the song that menace. Yeah. And that sense of danger that it has really, like really dialed up that feeling in such a fantastic way. And again, like the acoustic bit is just that bridge, right? Again, they sort of quiet a bit before we hit it again. Really, a number of the songs do that so well on this album.
Yeah. And there's also the slightly Phantom of the Opera bit of the "You hear my voice is calling to be mine again."
It's so dramatic, isn't it? It's so kind of over the top, but in such a great way, not kind of in a cliched way. It's really
it's a very thrilling song.
It is.
If you don't consider what it's about, it's a thriller. It really is. It's wall of sound stuff. It is. It really is. I'm never fond of brass. It's something for me. I hate saxophone.
Oh, come on, Herb Alpert, come on.
They just never, in rock music, they just they're my instrument of pain, but they work here. It works here.
It does. It does, because it really heightens the dramatic kind of tension or the dramatic, isn't it? In a way you couldn't do with just a guitar, I don't think.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a sweet dream in the same way that Love Story is a love story, though, isn't it?
Yes. It's so. What is it about?
Well, it feels more autobiographical to me. This feels like because
I hope not. I hope not.
Autobiographical. Sorry.
Because at least what I think it's about. So.
It talks about. It's almost like this is something about, and I don't know, of course, but in love with someone when you're you're some kind of a figure like a rock star or something, and you can draw this person into your world, even if your parents don't approve. It feels like it's that kind of adolescent rebellion to it. It's kind of got that feel to it, which I think
I think there's a sensual aspect to it which is a bit disturbing. So I don't think it's just sort of adoration.
Yeah, and your place of resting is not far, and you live the rest of your life in a day.
That's a great line. I guess that is a brilliant line, by the way. Live the rest of your life in a day. Or at least what is being offered is a whole lifetimes of experience in what this person can offer. I've got a feeling that it's more sensual and a little bit disturbing in that respect, because it's clearly a young girl. Still within her parents' orbit.
Yes.
And there's somebody who's clearly not as young as she is who is offering a lifetime of experience in the space of a day. I don't know, Adrian. Well, you were going to say something, Adrian. You were.
Oh yeah, just that I had sort of. Originally, when I heard it, I thought more sort of serial killer overtones, but I think Robin described it well. It could, and if you sort of take it on literal blush, that's kind of the feel I got from it. But I think Robin explained it well, that it's sort of more about maybe a rock star or someone famous who sort of comes in, sweeps someone off their feet and away from their parents, and gives them, as you say, the rest of their life basically or more than they'll get in the rest of their life in a day. So before being discarded and so on. So
and the all wrapped up tightly in the coat you borrowed from me. This is not somebody who doesn't know the person. This is somebody who's still living with mum and dad.
That's why I don't think it's the anonymous adulation of a groupie. I think this is about something more intimate.
Yeah.
But which suits its disturbing tone. it's an amazing song.
Yeah,
it really is.
And I think it could. I think it's one of those songs you could, it's not obvious what it is. It could be read in a number of different ways. I think, in that sense, yeah. I mean, it could be read in a quite sinister way, or to me, the heightened kind of drama of it feels like adolescent rebellion, but equally
angst.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that song on Stand Up when he talks about, or he sings about, being picked up in a limousine and did you hear mother for 1,000 mothers. It feels like that's quite a dramatic song as well, about rebellion and what do parents know, what's going on, you know what I mean? And this feels to me, this feels a little bit similar to that. I mean, obviously slightly different kind of, content, but a similar kind of thing in that way. Yeah.
But I think this I was talking about listening to this and not Revelation's a bit over dramatic. Well, not for this song, it probably suits it, but I think this was the song that I really grabbed my attention and focused me on early Tull, and still love it.
Yeah, it's great song. Yeah, get out and get what you can.
Yes,
and your mum's at home sleeping.
Yeah.
They lost what they thought they were keeping. Yeah, it's very it's great. It's very evocative. Yeah.
Yep. I could sing it all day.
You'd planned that. I can tell.
Well, to be fair to me, singing all day is something I pretty much try and do anyway, and sing random stuff. So, are we ready to move on to that? Yep. And again, I don't think this is the most complicated song, but it's sort of, I think we've all had those times where you're just kind of hanging on and waiting for something to happen, and you're sort of trying to fill up your day until it happens, knowing full well that it might not actually
that's something
occur.
That's something being lost love or unrequited love.
Well, in this case, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be, that phone call for saying what the result of the job interview was, or anything like that, where you're sort of waiting. There's something you're really, basically the rest of your life almost is like hinging on this next thing happening, the call from the hospital or whatever, and it's desperately important that you take that call. And so that's why he's like singing very softly. So if the phone rings, you can hear it, sort of thing. So I don't think it has to necessarily, and it is about love in this case, but to me it was more broadly applicable than that, because I've sort of felt myself in that situation sometimes where, you are kind of basically filling up your day with kind of meaningless stuff and just half an ear on the phone or the whatever it is to get that news you really need to get.
Yeah. This is specifically about a woman, though.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the lyrics are specifically, but I don't think it's totally... The situation that he finds himself in is not applicable solely to that.
No, exactly. You're right. It's that kind of waiting and hanging around. I think it's a nice companion piece to Sweet Dream, because they're both they feel obsessive, but in different ways.
This is the pathetic obsession.
Yeah. And it tells a great story. So just sort of going here, going there, and it's very whimsical. And I love the middle part again, where it's just kind of very daydreamy, isn't it? Just sort of singing.
Yeah, it's very dreamlike. Yeah.
And then it's back to the house. Maybe it's this sort of really.
Yeah, well, you can just imagine him like being in a coffee shop, sort of sipping on a coffee, thinking, having a bit of a daydream. And then suddenly, no, this is pointless. Right, back to the house, and sort of with purpose heading back there, and then kind of falling into a reverie again. Yeah, it's great.
It is a good song. Again, it's quite forgettable. So it wasn't... I think it might have been... Just looking at the sleeve, it was recorded at the same time as Sweet Dream in the same studio, yet was not the B-side to Sweet Dream.
That would have made a good companion piece.
It wouldn't be too kaleidoscopic.
No. You're never going to live that down, Robin.
Never.
He's going to Beat you with that stick forever. So
when I give the eulogy for Robin, that'll be the first thing mentioned.
He had lived a kaleidoscopic life.
No, it's embracing the complexity.
Yes,
okay, right. It's one of those irregular verbs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why this wasn't the B-side to Sweet Dream, but 17, a song called 17 was, which I have somewhere, maybe on the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, I think it is, but I cannot for the life of me remember. If I heard of that,
very memorable then.
Okay, one of the big ones, Teacher.
Yes, Inside. No.
Teacher on my one.
What is the story? Where? It is Teachers here. What happened?
Oh, I've got Inside on my CD.
Yes. CD. Throw that CD
this
out the window.
I do not understand. If you're going to remove something, every right-thinking person knows the Teacher is supposed to be on Living in the Past. If they're going to choose something to remove from the CD, why do they?
Is Teacher just shuffled to later, or is it totally?
No, it's gone. It's not on this. So the CD's
due to, according to my CD, it was removed due to timing issues.
So instead, they left Singing All Day in. I mean that.
Yeah, but because that's on Living in the Past. Yeah, it's a bit crazy.
I do not understand.
Yeah, on my version that was ripped from the CD, and I play on the computer, I've taken out. I've gone zoop back in, taken out, and put Teacher back in, so it's back to its proper and rightful place.
I think this is a favourite of all of us, and I do remember. Yeah. I do remember Robin. I had grave doubts, but I was holding out for you. That when we went to see them live, you were seriously over pre-gig drinks. You were seriously hoping that they would play Teacher.
Yes, I love the Teacher.
So, is this one of your favourite Tull songs?
It is one of my absolute favourite ones. I think one that's coming up is the absolute apex, but this one is right up there. So the thing I think again it tells a great story. I just love it. It's a great rock track.
It is. It's a fantastic rock track, which I don't feel the same way about the original version. Which so this is one case where the American remix, I think, is superior. I think I might have alluded to that earlier.
And that do 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 do, and then the flute kind of stutters in.
Well, and the organ and the organ as well. So there's the bass and the guitar, and then it's a great rock song. It really is, and it's just. Even to this day, I love it. So the original version, the UK. So this is the US version. The original, the UK version, was a bit slower paced and quite trippy, which actually probably suits what I think its theme is. It had more complex instruments and instrumentation in the middle of it. But this is a cleaner, rockier version, and I just really prefer this version.
I was actually going to say that the upbeat, rocky vibe is actually the genius of this song compared to the slower version, because it invites misinterpretation. Like normally, I think we've talked about songs before where the music doesn't really suit the lyrical content, and that causes a bit of a clash and whatever. Cry You a Song, I think, was the main one we talked about there. But here, I think it does it fantastically, because a lot of people are sort of sucked into the song and enjoy it because it's such a fun, upbeat number. And don't realize that it's about this kind of, being abused and misused by this guru type. And that's like the song is doing it to you as well in exactly that way. It's sucking you in, but you're not really seeing the proper message of the song because you're blinded by the brilliance of it. So I think that's genius and fantastic as far as this song goes.
Yeah. The other thing I like about it is the density of the chorus. So Lloyd Cole does this, Bernard Sumner, New Order does this, where their lyrics can be very dense in the chorus. I like that. They put a lot of words in, and this chorus has a lot.
I tried to socialise, but I can't seem to find what I've been looking for. Got something on my, you know what I mean?
It's very, very dense.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. It's very lyrically dense in that way, and I really like that about it.
The chorus is musically compelling. What I really love about it is the tempo change between the verse and the chorus, because the chorus is quite languorous, the verse is quite languorous, and the chorus just rocks. It's got a great riff.
That's the teacher part, isn't it?
The drum fills are great. One of my favourite flute solos of his, even though it's a very brief one.
Is great.
It's got finger clicking in it. Da 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 da. Yeah, lovely, great. Good. Love a song with finger clicking. So it was the.
I mean, it's hard to sit still. The thing about it is, it's hard to sit still to this track. It really is a get up, everybody, and have a dance.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of feel about it.
I do. So we'll talk about the other song, but it was pretty much a double A side with Witch's Promise, wasn't it? And that is audacious. That's audacious, right?
What a single that is.
Again, each of these could have been the centerpiece of an album, and it's just audacious. To put two of them out as a double single.
Yeah, it's pretty much the best single ever, isn't it?
Nuts.
I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah.
It reached number 4 on the charts, so only one behind Living in the Past.
I mean, just the teacher. Hey man, what's your plan? What was that you said? Suntan, drink in hand, lying there in bed. Just fantastic. Yeah. Like just with those few lines, it sums it all up.
So really, the bit I love is the teacher's very bland, generalised, underdone advice that sucked the people in, which is jump up, look around, find yourself some fun. No sense in there and healing everyone. No man's an island. The castle isn't home. The rest count for nothing when the boats are flown. It's like, that's genius. Wait, there's absolutely nothing.
That's what it is. It's all platitudes and homilies. But they are a little bit inverted. So no man's an island and his castle isn't home. It's really an inversion of the. It's not. I don't think it's quite that straightforward. And I think the Guru has given him something at the end. I mean, it is about snake oil salesmen and people taking you for
the guru kind
for
of
what you
looked up to.
Which was obviously a big thing in the at the period that this was written. But it's kind of the Guru has given him something at the end. At least he's made him realise that everything he needs is actually something he already knew.
Yes.
And at least it's opened his eyes to that. While the Guru has taken all his money and a plane ticket to Bermuda or wherever they've gone to. So I think he's. Ironically, the Guru. I feel like the Guru's actually led him to an obvious conclusion in the end, which has still been a benefit to him. So,
I took advantage of you for your own good.
Yes.
So you could grow as a person.
Thank me for it.
I've relieved you of all your of the baggage of your earthly wealth. So,
you can spin off into the slipstream. And it's interesting, given Ian Anderson's other songs of sort of guru-dom, if you like, his advice is basically, it boils down to that, doesn't it? It's basically, I've lived my life and I have my experience and I know what I know, and you know other stuff. I can't really tell you what to make of that. That's up to you.
Get up, get out of bed and have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see again. You look at the footage of him singing this, and the sort of people dancing away. And very easy for people to misinterpret the song, and just think it's a song about having a good time.
I think a lot of people do think it's about a teacher, because also again the teacher is generally someone who's to be respected. You brought up.
It's God. Teacher's God. This is all about God, isn't it?
Oh, God. No, that's on another side.
Wait a second. Although, no, is the teacher a woman? And has the woman done him wrong?
She's not bloody painted the roof, that's for sure.
The threads go all the way back.
No, it's Aqualung's. It's Aqualung's teacher from high school.
Right.
Oh,
so he took advantage of him, and that's why he ended up
destitute. Yeah. It all makes something now.
It makes a pile of something. Yes, a steaming pile of something. So, an amazing song.
Yeah,
and why you would choose to remove that.
I don't know.
Instead of some of the other stuff on here, I have no idea. But anyway, it's
so on some CDs or whatever, it ends up on benefit, doesn't it? So it
ends up on
benefit.
No, it was on there's interesting.
Yeah,
so
the US versions, it's on
it was
benefit.
on the American release of Benefit. So maybe it wasn't. Although it was on the American release of the vinyl, so this is CDs are much later.
But, I mean, it fits on Benefit. I mean, the themes kind of fit quite nicely in Benefit. Actually,
it's a bit. It's not somber enough.
It's a bit
for
upbeat,
Benefit.
isn't it? I mean, all that happens is he gets ripped off for everything and gets left with a bit of homespun wisdom, and that's pretty cheerful day for Benefit.
I think Benefit's much more somber and introspective than this. This is, But,
so you can see that Benefit could have been a less somber album with different choices, isn't it? It's interesting, isn't it?
Because they were all those singles. So that makes it really feel like there was a very conscious decision making into how Benefit was structured, because a lot of these singles appeared around it and are quite different in their.
Yeah, imagine an album, instead of half of Benefit, you have Sweet Dreams, Singing All Day, Teacher and Witch's Promise. I mean, that is quite a different beast, isn't it?
Which really makes it clear that the purpose of albums was very different. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I said when we did the review for Benefit that the most, single-like poppy, or, that kind of song on there was Alive and Well. No, not Alive and Well. What am I talking about? Inside. If there was a hit in inverted commas, that seemed like it, and it's not very hitty, is it?
It's no Sweet Dream or Teacher or Witch's Promise. No.
Yeah, and I mean this is it's interesting. So,
but it just shows
this dichotomy between singles and albums.
I think the purpose of obviously the purpose of producing albums is very different to.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, which is now meaningless, but at the time wasn't so much. Yeah.
Which is now.
Very good. Witch's Promise, The Other Side. Now, it's probably no mystery, no surprise to you guys that I'm very, very fond of this song. I've been throwing the lyrics at you in my renditions of it. I'm sorry, recently, but I'm very fond of this
fantastic.
song.
It's got to be, if not the best, one of the best Jethro Tull songs of all time. I mean, I was talking before about the Baroque pop. This is it. This is what I mean by Baroque pop. The elements of the instrumentation with the singing and things. It just wouldn't be the same. It just wouldn't be the same song without all of the elements in it.
And it starts off with that amazing flute and then goes into the do-do-do-do-do-doos of the mellotron or whatever it is.
It's
just
a
amazing.
mellotron. I always assumed it was actual strings, but apparently it's not, which I guess is a tick in the column for the mellotron, because it actually can simulate strings. Although I believe this was the only time they ever used it.
Yeah, I heard John Everett was a big fan of it.
Is that two flutes, or is it just him playing the same flute twice in it?
It might have just been double. It's only got him credited, so there's no Martin Barre flute.
Yeah. It's just fantastic stuff.
It's an acoustic folk rock masterpiece, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just, and to me, it's just it's almost like a fairy tale turned into a folk song, turned into a rock song kind of thing. It's just brilliant.
The flute is very fantasy-like, isn't it? The way the flute is, whether it's doubled or whatever's done with it, it's a real fantasy element to it. The subject matter's not fantasy, but it's got that. Yeah, I love you probably know I love the acoustic guitar and that alternated strumming and arpeggios and it's just and this was a remix of the single. I'm not sure. I'd have to go listen to the single version. I'm sure I've got it somewhere. I'm not sure that it sounds that different. This was.
I saw a live version of him doing it on the BBC, and I didn't notice any difference apart from the very bad vanilling along with
it was terrible miming. Track. And what I found interesting looking at that, it might just have been was that Martin Barre was on the acoustic guitar, and I don't think we ever saw him on acoustic, and is that
yeah, he's credited here
was that
as
doing the acoustic? Okay, that's interesting because almost invariably Ian Anderson did that. So I didn't think Martin Barre ever played acoustic. Not that he couldn't play acoustic. I'm sure he's a fantastic acoustic guitar player, but he never, as far as I knew, never played acoustic for Tull. In this case, he did. Good work, Martin.
Well, I would call you a fool, but I didn't know.
It's also, interestingly, I'd read somewhere, this is the first recording with John Evan.
You know, I think about this song and I think, well, you know, Anderson could have penned something a bit like Beggar's Farm or something, or Reasons for Waiting or something that was much more anchored in sort of a realistic and
reality.
I think the fact that it sort of transports it to some kind of allegory or
more
Grimm's kind of fairy story
like
just makes it more Grimm's fairy, and I think the saying before at the beginning that this to me is a germ of something which we're going to hear more of in the late 70s, but we don't, you know what I mean? This sort of thing. So and
Foxy sort of thing,
it's just fantastic because it really does raise it from just. We've heard songs about people, you know, walking around trying to find someone singing all day or Sweet Dream, but this is just, and even Teacher is sort of elevated in this sort of realism, contemporary realism, whereas this takes it to somewhere else. And so it makes the impact of the song that much more.
It brings it back to a contemporary theme
because of that.
Obviously, which is part of how clever it is. So
one of the things I loved about it is that I think I said way back that they didn't write too many love songs, and when they did, there was more love story or Witch's Promise. You know, yes, it's about love or woman done me wrong when they go back far enough or whatever, but it's sort of dressed up in a different way, and it's a much more interesting. The whole premise of the song and the way it's presented is much more interesting to me.
Well, that's interesting. I've listened to this song for a long time, and I still can't. There's a convoluted, to my mind, who is what. And I think I've finally come to something I think might be right or accept.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing who is what.
So to my mind, the Witch's Promise is an empty charm.
Okay.
That will turn, like in Grimm's fairy tales, that will turn on the...
I sort of see it as more of it's like an inevitability based on the things that are going on.
Yeah, so the woman in the relationship has been seduced away by the promise of something, whether it's another lover or whether it's a grass is greener pastures somewhere else. She's been seduced away by a promise of something that's empty, but she's yearning for, and the male partner is actually gullible enough to accept that. I mean, he's stupid, as it's actually states in the song. And I was always going, who's the witch in this? You know, was he kissed by her? Was she the witch? I actually think the witch is not part of the love triangle or the duality or whatever it is. I think it's just the temptation. I think it's
allegorical witch.
The allegorical temptation, not an actual member of not one of the characters in the story, but an allegorical principle who's the actual temptation.
The bit that kind of always upset me a bit about this sort of confusion is that it's clear that the you is not the witch, but then the final line of the first verse is believing he listened while laughing you flew, and I guess that's intentional.
I couldn't get
you're doing these witchy things, flying and laughing as you fly type of thing, but you're not a witch. So it's
I mean it's an allegory of if something. I mean it's an allegory, obviously. So the classic sort of Grimm's fairy tale is the witch who presents the love potion so that someone will fall in love with you, but ultimately the story never works. And the allegory is teaching you that if you get things without having to work properly for them, you don't appreciate them. So the way I always took this was a woman who wanted a man, and so she used, talk about the fairy story. I wanted a witch to cast some sort of spell on him, but then to fall in love with her, which that happened, but then she took that for granted and didn't didn't follow up because she didn't really, the feelings were not that deep. And so she took all that for granted, but ultimately she paid the price because she neglected him. And then, that's it. She's thrown away the opportunity.
She's certainly taken him for granted. And in the final line, even though he's been accepting, he's willing to appeal to you, all of these things, in the end, she's going to wait.
So don't wait up for him. He's going to be late. Like that's it. You've
He's
squandered.
Gone. No,
squandered the opportunity.
So I've always loved, as you know, I've always loved that second verse. It's one of his most lyrically beautiful verses. I'm not quite sure what it means in the context of the song, even so. The leaves falling red, yellow, brown, and the love and the rain. And
was it just time passing, or is that a sort of it's raining men kind of
no time passing? Yeah, that's how I always read it.
If the leaves are still falling, you're too blind to see.
Yeah, so time's still passing. Time's passing you by, and your chance to make good on this relationship, but you're too blind to see it.
You're looking elsewhere for your own selfish gain.
She's looking beyond. She's looking beyond the relationship. That's why I thought there was an element of the temptation and the seduction of something beyond what she actually had, which I guess is part of what you've said.
Because it never goes well in these sorts of fairy stories when someone uses a potion to seduce somebody
children
else.
Get eaten.
No.
It always is. Yes, right. You won't find him tasty now. It's only fair.
They get gingerbread first. It's not all bad.
Always food, Adrian. As long as there's food, death and torture don't matter.
Yes, there's always food. Someone did write a long treatise on how this was all religious based,
on which is promise.
It was quite an interesting read. How it's all about Abrahamic religions and blah blah blah. When they and what they said kind of made sense reading through it on some level, but to me it would have to be. It's incredibly subtle. If what they said was true, it's an incredibly subtle sort of buffing around the edges of this idea that it's all about God. And we know that when it comes to religion, Ian Anderson is not subtle at the moment. He's not in a subtle phase. So if it wasn't for the other songs like Hymn 43 and those kind of things, I might have a bit more understanding with this person's interpretation of it. But I prefer it just as a sort of basically a folk tale.
What you're saying is it could be that interpretation, or that could be a load of bullshit.
Well, did I say that?
I know what you meant.
I'm glad you've translated for our discerning audience.
Yeah, the witch's promise is a promise of pleasure and joy, and also a promise of despair and
ruin,
disillusionment.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Brilliant.
Speaking of awesome, alive and well and living in.
Alive and well and living in the past.
I think we talked about alive and well and living in great depth already, haven't we? So,
well, I talked about it in very shallow depth, and then you talked about it in great depth.
Yes. But great song.
Oh, yeah.
Again, if you were just approaching living in the past for the first time, you'd find this very satisfying, and it holds its place well.
Yeah, it suits the position there.
Amazing side of this amazing album.
And you know, we've got the progression into the John Evan keyboards now, and you can really see that.
Yeah.
Yep, he's moved on from the Mellotron onto the piano. So we're just trying to be finishing off side 2.
Yeah. The song that should have been on Aqualung.
I know you liked I don't think that's what Aqualung was about. It was not an acoustic album. It was about the variety. This predates Aqualung.
Yeah, it seems like more of a benefit-y song to me, isn't it?
Okay.
Again, the sort of the parent issues, basically.
It does.
Yeah, he's not really understood, or the band, him and his mates, are not understood by the parents, and they're just trying to be what they're trying to be, not what other people want them to be. That's how I was kind of reading it.
It is one of his great brief acoustic numbers. But it also answers the mastermind question if you're ever asked about which Jethro Tull song has a xylophone on it.
It's a Celeste.
I was going to say, is that a xylophone, is it?
I think so.
Or
it must
a glockenspiel or one of those?
It must be, or one of those. I didn't think it was just him talking about the band being what they were trying to be. I thought it was almost like taking that person by the hand and saying you're emerging from the authority of parents or clergy or teachers or whoever it is who's loved you but is unwilling to relinquish you, and you like our music and you're taking the journey with us, and they can't see what you see in us and what we sort of the musical journey we're taking together.
I think, well, the reason I thought is, I guess it has those meanings too, but it was directly applicable was the final lines about, even now they don't see that, even now we've achieved success, they still don't get it, basically.
I think it's a song about growth.
Only a dream.
Clearly, it's a song about growth and change.
Growing up,
And I think, it's lovely. It's lovely the way it communicates that. I think it's
all within about a minute of acoustic and xylophone.
Celeste.
Just like a lot of those other very brief.
And it's not an angry song. It's quite whimsical. No. It's not like. There's other songs which are about growth and adolescent rebellion. Like 1,000 Mothers or whatever. Even Sweet Dream. It's much more whimsical.
Well, it's also a lot more understanding of the other parties that, of course, you're not going to accept or believe that it's only a dream because you're holding on to what your dreams for us were.
Yeah,
but, we've moved on, and then we can sort of pat you on the back and say, it's okay, we're going to be all right.
Yeah. It's a lovely way to end the, kind of tie up the second side.
Well, I actually love the way it ends.
Yeah.
It's very Michael Collins in the way it ends. That sort of only a dream and that tinkling xylophone, dream-like
Celeste
extending off reminds me a little bit of the end of Michael Collins with
walking with you.
Yeah, it's got that dream-like quality as it ends. It's another fine short acoustic piece, and it ends this side very well.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely side. Yeah.
Next time on Three Thick Bricks, Living in the Past.
Wow, good luck editing this one, Adrian.
It's all right. Everything after side 3 is just being cut.
So thank you very much for listening. If you would like to leave us any comments or you would like to subscribe to this podcast, and we sincerely hope you do, there's a number of ways you can do that. You can find this podcast at www.threethickbricks.com. You can also hit us up on the Facebook page, which is at Three Thick Bricks Podcast. And you could also send us a Gmail if you really want to at threethickbricks@gmail.com. And all of those details will, of course, be in the show notes. So next time, the Bricks will be discussing part 2 of Living in the Past, the second LP, so sides 3 and 4. And I'm very much looking forward to that. And so on behalf of Brent and Adrian, I wish you all the best and see you soon. Thanks. Bye.